All right, Miguel, welcome back to Rebel Ants Radio. I started this episode by saying, all right, I apologize. But we are excited for today's episode. This is the Rebel Ants Radio, which is the official podcast of the Rebel Ants NFT project. And this is our Build in Public showcase of our journey, showing what it's like to launch a podcast and an NFT project all at the same time, going from zero to hopefully 10,000 holders. And I'm Kevin, joined today, as always, by my co-host, co-pilot, co-founder, Miguel. And in just a few minutes, we're going to bring up our special guest, Jessica, aka Wondermundo. Miguel, how are you?
I am great. And I'm going to start charging you for every time you say the word all right on air.
Well, you know, if we get a lot of replays, that'll count as each instance, and then I'll owe you a lot of money. You know, if we get hundreds of people watching and replaying, then I'd happily pay you hundreds of dollars on that.
Listen, our YouTube channel continues to grow every day, so it's going to happen.
It does. You and I text each other like every day when the number goes up by 1. So you'll just randomly text me like, oh, 78. And I'll text you, ooh, 79. And we're at 80. But it'll be funny one day when we go back and look at those text messages, you know, when we're in our thousands and we're celebrating these little wins. But that's what Hopefully. This game is. It's a game of inches for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we are getting a lot of views on a lot of the videos. So that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. We're trying a lot of different things with our shorts. We're trying different things with our clips. We're doing a couple of paid promotions. What are you seeing that works or doesn't work so far?
It's too early to judge. I think we need to wait like another couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, just to see how everything pans out and how we can see what was the best thing that we used, and that way we can share it with the public. But I think that everything that we're doing is pretty proactive. So let's see how it goes in the next couple of days, couple of weeks.
Absolutely. I'm excited to monitor our numbers down to the minute, really, you know, refreshing way too often. It's embarrassing. Okay. Before we jump too far into the show, let's remind our viewers about a couple of things. One, you can mint your own Rebel Ant over at rebelants.io. So please head over there and you'll find lots of links and other information as well. So mint away. We invite you to join our journey and support us. We thank you for that. You can also head over to rebelants.io/shop, get your own merch with the Rebel Ants all over it, and more to come there. And if you were an early minter of the Rebel Ants, you can get a sweet, sweet gift box, which has been going viral on YouTube and Twitter. I just made that up. But you can get a gift box, which was sent out as an early thank you. So I've got mine right behind me here. It's this beautiful box with lots of goodies inside of it. So Miguel, thank you, and Gina for putting those together. What is it like for you to see people getting those boxes and celebrating those?
It's pretty cool to see, because it took a long time for us to come up with what was going to go inside the box, and then, you know, we had to go buy the stuff that I wanted it to be from us, not someone who was creating it. So yeah. I went out and I went and bought like all the equipment, all the stuff to make the stickers, all the stuff that's inside the box. I don't want to give too much away. You know, and our head of branding, it's just technically a mad scientist at work trying to put things together and do things. But she definitely learned. She did a great job with those boxes. And so far, we've gotten like so many videos about people that are sharing like when they got the boxes, when they opened it. And it's pretty cool to see. I posted some of those videos on Twitter. So head over to our Twitter and see those videos. Pretty cool stuff inside those boxes. But I don't want to give too much on air because I really want it to be a surprise. So join our Twitter if you really want to see what's in it. Follow us and like those videos.
Yeah, and while you're there, make sure you also like and subscribe to this channel as well. So smash that subscribe button, smash that like button, give us some love. And I think the last thing I'd like for us to mention is that at some point during this episode, we will drop a secret code so that you get a chance to win a free Rebel Ant airdrop to you. So at some point, we will post a code up on the screen, and the first 3 people to post that code at the link that we'll give will get a chance to win a free Rebel Ant that'll be airdropped if you post within the first 24 hours that we air the show. So keep an eye out for that. Listen all the way through. Miguel, what else you got?
Crypto's going up this week.
Yeah, a lot of green. Green is good.
Seems to be going up. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to talk to Jessica about that as well, since, you know, if that's your main source of income, I'm interested to hear how that feels. So It's good. All right, we have Lindsay joining us. Lindsay, thanks for joining us. And we invite all of our rebels who are watching to comment below. Let us know where you're joining us from, and any questions you have for us or Jessica, who we're going to bring up here in just a minute. Drop those comments below. All right, are we ready, Miguel?
We are ready.
All right, here we go.
Welcome, Jessica.
Welcome,
Hi.
welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to get to talk to you in long form here. I think when we did our pre-call, we had a lot of repressed questions, but we're gonna get through them all here if we can. So, first off, how are you? Where are you joining us from?
I'm good. I am joining from Austin, Texas. Yeah, and just I set my son up for dinner and having a pretty good evening. No fights this evening about homework or anything, so it's a good one.
Yeah,
That's good.
I have a son who's the same age as yours, and so I was thinking, my son, he likes to wear his Rebel Ants beanie that he got for Christmas. And I said to him, what do you tell people in school if they ask what is Rebel Ants? And he says, I tell him it's my dad's podcast. So what is what is your son's understanding of what NFTs are, or what you do?
He understands NFTs like the technology, but he says like I make art. Like he talked about they had a field trip to an art museum and he asked me if my art was there. He's like, because I
So
wanted
awesome.
to say that's my mom. She's an artist. And I was like, okay, that's cool. No, but someday.
That's really
Yeah.
funny. That's good. Good. All right. We're going to talk about your past, your present, and your future. Okay. So let's start at the beginning and give us a little bit recap about how you got into the NFT and crypto space and how you discovered that.
Yeah, so I got into the crypto space, I'd say early April 2021. So the way I kind of fell into NFTs was I started doing like art therapy in March 2021. Um, and then it kind of led me to start doing art for myself again because when like I think I mentioned this before in a pre-call, but like I was 15, I was like, I want to be a web designer. Like I figured it out. I want to do graphic design, like that's it. Um, and so but once I started working, once I got my job was, I also grew up really poor, so it was like you have to get a job out of college. You had to do something. I figured out early on that like if I had already issues with depression, anxiety, getting a job that I hated wasn't going to do well for me.
Right.
So I went into like corporate content, and I think from then since that point, which was like 20 years, I'll age myself. I kind of didn't do art for myself until I started doing art therapy again, and I thought,
Wow.
what if like I applied the skills that I've learned to like do this other stuff for myself? And so I did. And once I started creating, I showed it to a few friends and they asked me if it was an NFT. And I was like, what's an NFT? And then I did research and just decided, YOLO, like I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And I was still working full time. And I came in with like an alter ego, I thought at the time too. Like, I'm just going to hide. It's going to be my second life. So I don't mess up my work Twitter or anything like that.
Yeah. And how did you decide on doing art therapy out of all the forms of therapy? How did it become art therapy?
I kind of landed there because I've been dealing with these issues since I was like 15, so for a very long time. And I was kind of giving up. Like I'm at that point where I have everything I thought I wanted. Like I have my 6-figure job, I have a house, I have all these things, but like I still hated myself, to be honest.
Wow.
And I was like,
yeah,
if I go to therapy, like it's gonna be the same thing. And so my partner, he's like, why don't you try art therapy? Why don't you try trauma informed therapy and see if that helps? So that's kind of how I landed there.
That's great. It's not an easy step, I think, to go into therapy for the first time, but it's definitely worth it. I think everyone who does it would hopefully admit to.
Yeah.
And so the time that you said you started therapy seemed to be also right around the time you shared that you dropped your career, that your working job, and then started your NFTs. So how were those aligned?
There was about maybe like an 8-month separation from those, but I think all along with my NFT journey, especially if you were to go look at my pieces from the beginning and to where I'm at now, they'll kind of tell a story. Because I think what I also discovered last March when I started therapy again was that I had a dissociative disorder. So what that means is like I have different parts of me that feel like full personalities. It's not like what you see in TV with like multiple personality disorder. Like that is not what you see, but it's
Yeah.
called dissociative identity disorder. And so a lot of that is me grappling with like the reality of me having that. Like I'm not just because my whole thought was like, oh, I'm traumatized, I'm fine now, so things are okay.
Yeah.
And so last year my art is really dealing with that in its own, and it wasn't until I kind of got to the end of last year that I kind of reset everything. I took like time off work, like I took a month off and was figuring out what I needed to do, and I decided that's when I was like, I'm just gonna try this out for a year, figure it out, and see what happens. And now it's been almost a year in February.
That's great. Well, congrats.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a comment here. Someone saying, never heard of art therapy, but sounds really cool. Can you give us like the elevator pitch of what is art therapy or how you've
Yeah,
been
so
going through it?
people do it differently, and some people can argue that all art is therapy. But at least when you do it with a therapist, at least when I've done it, what's interesting about it is you draw something, or you're not really, there isn't like a do this. It's like draw what you're feeling, and then you might talk about it, but you don't try to interpret too much meaning into it. A lot of the big part of it is letting it go. Like it doesn't matter what it means or what it could mean. It's beautiful, and now we need to let this go, and that kind of goes along with the healing process. So that's also why I like NFTs, because like the burn process for me feels like that same way of like I'm letting it go now.
Oh wow.
And so yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. How were you able to do the technological part of the NFT? How did you learn that process?
I just Googled and did that, but part of my professional life prior to NFTs is always in the tech field, at least with like systems and software, like learning technologies, collaboration softwares, and teaching people how to use things. And so I think I just use those to like figure it out for myself, and then actually help some friends too. From that as well. So I would say a bunch of Google and asking people. When I joined my first collectors, I asked them a ton of questions.
It's similar to what we did. Like we Googled a lot. We YouTube a lot to try to figure this thing out, this new world, right? Because for me, again, like NFTs are a great platform for artists to showcase their art, like we mentioned before in the past. Like, I think that artists are not. There's a lot of artists out there in the world, right? And nobody's able to showcase their art, or people will never know what it is that they do. And I feel like NFTs is an important platform for all artists out there to showcase how they feel and what it is that they're portraying, or because art is an extension of us, right? So why not put it out there? And I think NFTs is a great platform for that. So
Yeah,
I read in one of your blogs on your website that you also have a lot of Easter eggs and a lot of hidden meanings on your art. You want to talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so a lot of I think I mentioned earlier, like if you were to look at my art from the beginning to where I'm at now, you might notice some things. And I leave a lot of Easter eggs because I think it's fun. For one, I don't always talk about like where they are because I want people to discover them on their own. Because I think it's the fun of it is to like look at, for me, when I look at something I like and I go back again a second time and I discover something that I hadn't seen the first time, there's something fun in that. But I think it's also part of my overall process. Like there's a subconscious parts of me that drop Easter eggs that I don't even realize until later when I look back at the piece myself. And it's like a different part of me like leaving that there, I feel like. But there's things like in a few of my early work, there's like I did a lot of like digital glitch collage work. So there's pictures of like if you see a child, like a little girl, it's usually me. It's just an old photo of me, or there's photos of my mom, photos of my dad, little things like that that I find in there as that people you can see if you notice. But I don't usually say like that's my dad. They're just in there.
That's pretty cool. Do you have any artistic influences, first of all?
Yeah, I think for me, it's hard to like name any specific person besides like immediately my name thinks of like Dolly is like one who is a real influence on the surrealism. But even early, I can't remember his name right now, but an early graphic designer was a big influence on my work, like just the typography. And I think another thing is like Frida and Diego, a lot of in general, like you see a lot of Mexican influences or Latino and whatever you want to call it. But I'm Mexican in my work.
And you being Latina, like you mentioned just now, being Mexican American, right? How do you feel that that affects your work, your actual artwork? Do you feel like
Oh,
it does or it doesn't?
yeah, I think it does a lot because I grew up on the border, so I grew up in a very different world. If you're familiar from like the Texas-Mexico border, like the cities there, like I always say, it's a different world. It's not quite Mexico and it's not quite the US. So I always felt
Mm.
like I was stuck in the middle of that. And so I still carry that over with my work, I think. And the fact that like I grew up where on the weekends my dad like he was from Mexico. He never got his American citizenship. He was deported at one time. So like I grew up so
Oh
close to where
God.
like we would go over to Mexico on the weekends and just hang out. And it
Wow.
was you get in your car and you go over, or we would I that's where I would see the doctor, like the dentist visit. And so, like I said, I'm not quite 100% Mexican, but I'm also not 100. I can't say I'm 100% American. I'm just like either the both.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though. Is there do you feel like your art, it's important to society, being that it has all the meanings behind it that it does?
There's a part of me that wants to say no because, like, who do I think I am that my art is important? But, like, yeah, I think it is because, when I was growing up and I was, young, I didn't have any models that I could look towards to see, like, hey, they're doing something right. I was just like
Right.
this child of, like, I'm gonna figure it out. But, like, thankfully I did, but it would be really nice to see other people who, like, were doing that. And so I think it's important in that way, just because the same way that I used to volunteer with like teaching tech to young girls, it's the same way that I feel about my art. And also, I talk a lot about vulnerable subjects, like for some, even just talking about going to a therapist might be really hard.
Sure.
And so I think talking about those vulnerable things makes it easier for other people to talk about them. And so that's kind of my goal, I guess, with my art is to help make it easy for people to connect with and know like they're not alone.
That's awesome. Would you say your art has evolved in the last 2 years of being in this space?
Yeah, definitely. I think before the I got into the space, I wasn't really exploring art creation for myself. I would do things here or there. Like I went through a phase where I would find really cool fabrics and stretch them on canvas and I like staple them. Or like I went through a painting phase, and but I really wasn't. But then I always go back to work, and that would like drain my energy. And so in the last 2 years, my work has evolved from like me exploring the different things that I like to do, like analog collage and all those things, and then even digital art to now exploring things beyond that, like also exploring AI art and how I can use that in my workflow as well.
Oh, nice. That's cool. Before I forget to ask,
Aw, you just made my day.
oh, sorry. Was my Alexa going off? Maybe again. Before I forget to ask, can you tell us what Wondermundo means? And for all of our viewers, make sure you head over to wondermundo.io.
Yeah, so I love Alice in Wonderland and I'm Mexican. And so I just picked Wondermundo for that reason. Like that was my like translation of it in the moment. So
That's very
well.
cool. And it's funny you say Alice in Wonderland because our good friend Eric Rhodes is the one who recommended that we reach out to you, and he's doing an Alice.
Oh
Is he doing
yeah.
it right? He's doing Alice in Wonderland drop right now. So
Yeah.
how did you and Eric get connected?
We connected, I think early last year on Twitter. Got a potato and I bought one of his potatoes
Yeah.
and I joined. And he also was really, as I kind of felt like I got kind of adopted or kind of by the trash art community, who was like your art is art, like just do what you want. And so when I started looking into being part of the trash art community, people would always point to Eric as like he knows a lot, he's done articles. And then Eric was actually really helpful for me when I was thinking about like leaving my job. He actually spent an hour talking to me about how he did it and just like his perspective, and that was something that was cool.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's another great example of just the community just kind of forming so naturally and helping each other out. That's awesome to see. And that's how we're connected now, right? So I think it just
Yeah.
continues to show how valuable the space is, regardless of your size, right? We are obviously the little guys, we're pushing our 1,280 followers on Twitter. And so we're excited to grow and add you to our circle of friends and have you as a friend of the pod. So thank you again for being here.
Yeah.
So let's talk
Definitely.
about that tipping point for you to go from, exploring the space to saying, yeah, I'm ready to do this full time. Was that more of the passion that you just want to spend more time doing it? You felt it was more profitable? You were just sick of your other job? Was it all of that?
I think it was all of that, but mainly more of the passion of like, I can try this and, and really I had lost all the passion for my jobs,
Hmm.
or my job, I think. Like it was the best company. Like I don't still think it was like one of those, like, it's not you, it's me. And I kind of felt like I didn't want to go back into my world, which I called like autopilot. Like I was just on autopilot doing the things, but I wasn't really like living. I was just surviving. And so I felt like I had to do that. Where like even now, and I think about if I need to get a job, my first thing is like I'm gonna look at Web3 jobs first and
Yeah.
like that. So it's completely changed like my mindset. Like I don't think I if I had to I would, I guess, but like I wouldn't want to go back to what I was doing
Yeah.
before. It seems I always wanted to do something that felt more than like what I was doing. So this does
That's
feel like
awesome.
that.
Good. Well, if it makes you
Do
feel
you
any better,
feel?
we have a comment here. Sorry, Miguel, that just says the art is dope from Hyro Trinidad. So people like what you're doing. That's good. Sorry, Miguel, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna ask. Do you feel like you have like an existing customer base? Do you know like what your customer base or who is it that you're trying to reach with your artwork?
Yeah, I have a small collector base. I want to scale that a bit more and get larger collector base. But this is actually something I learned from Eric too, who gave me a tip of when he did started. He asked every collector like, "Why did you buy my art?" To start understanding more of who they are, and stuff like that. So yeah, I have understanding, but it's a really small collector base, and I think a lot of I still haven't quite found like which one is the one that's like where I can start pricing higher or where I might start thinking about pricing higher
Yeah.
because I'm still scared to go up to where I was pre-crash. Like last year, I feel like I could sell, you could put something up for like whatever and it would sell right away. And so like this year, this last 2022 has had been a lot of adjusting and adapting and like me having to reset my floor price like as well because it just wasn't sustainable how we were doing it last year.
Yeah. Is part of that what makes you use different blockchains to like publish projects on?
Yeah, that's one part, and also different platforms. Like I have a certain style, like on Maker's Place, that I think I'm just going to keep there versus what I
Mm.
might have on OpenSea or on my Manifold contracts. But I think that's one reason, but mainly do cross-platform just because I think it's good investment wise. Like I don't want to, I'm not saying anything bad about Solana, but like Solana has had a lot of issues, and I can't imagine like being like the only blockchain that I have my art on. And I have
Right.
minted on Solana, so not a lot, but just a couple there because I want to try things out. And so I think it's good for anyone because I actually started on Ethereum, but I really grew my community base on Tezos. Like that's really where I found my community and I found my collector base. And then those same collectors now have also started collecting on ETH. And so like it's a really interesting dynamic, I think, as
Yeah.
those, more people become open to using more than one platform or one blockchain.
Yeah. Did you have to learn different sort of skills to be able to use different blockchains, or is it just the service that you're hosting on kind of handles all the back end for you?
Mainly the service. Like the only thing you have to learn is like how do I do it on here? Like what is
Yeah.
the terminology? And also like back in like April of last year, things were not as easy. Like we would like figure it out, and then me and another friend were like making like Google slides so we can share with people because we were tired of
Oh, wow.
explaining how to do that. And
Yeah.
so like those days were fun. I think it was hard in that aspect, but also kind of fun if you like to figure things out before like things were made a little easier.
Yeah. That's cool.
That's pretty cool.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Can
Yeah,
you
or
walk
the
us through?
blockchain. Uh-huh.
Can you walk us through your artwork? Like, how does the process look from start to finish?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what I'm working on. Usually, if it's something, lately I've been working a lot with AI, and so when I use AI generators. I usually generate like up to 1,000 to 2,000 outputs, and then I'll curate them down to like a small number, like whether it's 55 or like 100, for example.
Wow.
Um, and then what I usually have on OpenSea, what I call my Wondermundo 2.0 collection, like those are more personal. Like so, the process of those, I usually draw a sketch, and then I let it sit until I feel like I want to, what I feel like coloring it and like starting the background, and then go from there. So I think rarely do I start something with like, I'm gonna do this. It's usually like, here are these things that I have, and then let's put the pieces together and make something with it and see what comes out.
That's awesome. And now that you're doing this full time, how do you manage your work-life balance as an artist?
Not super well, but pretty okay. I think, there's some things like I like when I do have what I call my daily Wondermundo, and they all have a bunch of backgrounds in them. But I kind of I developed a process for it. So like I draw the face daily, but I will sit and like I might like put a podcast on or like a TV show on, and I'll like do 20 backgrounds in like an hour or two versus doing like 5 minutes a day, if that makes sense. So I kind of try things like that to kind of balance that out. Same with like Twitter. I have tools that I use for scheduling. So like if I'm Twitter, I'm usually engaging with people versus like posting as well. So automation and tools.
Kevin and I are just all over the place.
Yeah.
Between us two, between the Twitter, the TikTok, all the other platforms. It's just
all the
crazy.
YouTubes. Yeah, so you're a team of one, you shared. So, obviously you've done pretty well as just a team of one. What segments of your business do you feel are the hardest to manage, or that you feel are the most natural for you between the marketing, the content creation, the sales, the back end administrative side of things?
Yeah, I think like the back end, the community aspects, the marketing stuff, that's easy. But for me, it's more of like the actual logistics of it. Like now I'm beyond NFTs. I'm also opening a merch shop. And so like that's a whole like I thought it would be easier. It's not.
It's pretty hard, yeah.
It's just like I thought it would be a lot easier. It's not like it doesn't feel hard, but it's some more steps than I thought. And then I have to think about like what does it look like? What is the stuff like that. So but I think I kind of like chunk my things out. So like I come from a tech background, and so I think a lot of terms in agile we're like, what is this? What is this one thing we're trying to do instead of like all the things, right? Like so in story. So I usually think about it in that aspect where I think like I gave myself like a story of like your goal is to get a shop up with like 5 items, and that's it first, and then I can start branding and like
there you go.
things, like just little minimum things, because it is hard. I have like Tumblr, I have TikTok and Instagram, but I would say like Twitter is where I spend the most time. The other ones I just kind of keep alive.
Yeah, same. So like for us, it was almost the same. Like when we started the merch shop, I thought it was going to be something really easy to do. And it became like this whole entire project. And then, you have to put in your finances, because I wanted it to come from us, like I had mentioned earlier. So I didn't want to pay someone to just generate the art and put it on a t-shirt. It just had no meaning to me. Everything that I do has a lot of meaning. So for me, it was more of like, how do we make it ourselves? How do we put our hands on it? And how do we send it out? And how do we ship it? So we had to figure out all those logistics. And then we ended up, one day I remember just saying, you know what, let's just go buy all the equipment. Let's just do it. and here we are today with all this equipment and stuff that we're just learning and getting done. But it's coming out pretty cool. And we started using Bonfire at first just to kind of get our feet wet. And Bonfire is a platform where you just kind of give them the art, and they'll put it on your, on t-shirts and stuff like that. And I just felt like it was not us. It was too expensive, or still is too expensive, and I really wanted to start our own like a website for shopping. So I kept like poking at Kevin. I'm like, we need to do our own thing. We need to do our own thing. We need to do our own thing. And finally, like a couple of weeks ago, we started planning for that. And I think next week we're going to really get into it and process our own website or put our merch into our own website, which is much better.
That's
but
cool.
it's hard.
Jessica. Yeah.
I started with like where they do the drop ship thing, and then I was like looking at the financials too, and it's like, if there's interest, I will consider going and doing it a different way.
Yeah. I think a lot of your artwork would look really good on a shirt or, whatever the merch you're trying to sell is. I think some of it looks great, right? I think a lot of it would lend itself well to that.
Yeah.
I'm curious as a full-time NFT artist and as a full-time artist, what are the metrics that you're looking at to measure your success, right? Is it, minting? Is it secondaries? Is it engagement on Twitter or your community? Like, what are you focusing on to say this is working or it's not working?
Yeah, so two things is like engagement on Twitter and sales is one. But I focus more on engagement, mainly because one of the important lessons I learned early on, like I learned from Empress Trash, which you haven't talked to her, you should, she's amazing. She was like, you need to separate art sales from your art, because if you are tie them together, like your art isn't going to sell. Sometimes that doesn't mean that your art sucks. It just means no one's buying it. It's the same way like in the traditional world. And so I try to look at what my sales are doing. So like, what does that look like? And that's total revenue, whether it's from secondary and from primary. So usually I will try to like mint like one collection, and then the next one is engagement on where I'm at, if it's going up or down. Because I think that to me has been the biggest like indicator of like when things are really quiet or my engagement drops, so do my sales on Twitter as well. But yeah, that's my main thing, is just looking at it. And I'm not really tracking, to be honest, engagement as much from Instagram and TikTok as I should be, but that's probably where the next step is for me.
That's very cool. Okay, before we move on to our next question, I just want to drop our secret code for the episode. So head over to rebelants.io/proof, enter the code Mundo, and you will get a chance to win a free Rebel Ant to be airdropped to you if you are one of the first 3 to enter the code within the first 24 hours of the show airing. So rebelants.io/proof, secret code Mundo. All right, so Jessica, you posted on Twitter that you had a project go up called Dreaming, and then it sold out pretty quickly. So how does that make you feel to be like, here's a thing and people like it?
Good. I think just if anyone buys my art and they like it, I get excited, whether it's like a penny or whatever. And so I'm also super excited about that one, because it's the first time I've done a limited edition drop on ETH like that. And so it's also me, and that one did really well. So I'm thinking I might do more because it did go well. So that's another way of like just playing around, but I'm excited about it. And that was one that people, I'm also noticing I had shared it before. People liked it a lot, asked me if I was going to mint it. And so when I did, a few sold immediately. And so it kind of made me think I'm going to try that again.
Yeah. And you had 10 for 0.03. So now you have 0.3 ETH. What do you do with that amount, if you don't mind sharing? Like, what is your strategy? You hold it, you hope it grows?
So I will move some to my Coinbase. I know it's like whatever, but that's what I use.
That's okay. That's okay.
And then I always buy a couple pieces. There's always a percentage back that I'll put just because I want to. And so I always want to buy 1 or 2 pieces from someone. And so like last week I did a buying thread, just because if I do a collection that sells well, I'm always at least going to put back like 5% and buy for people.
That's awesome. That's beautiful.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. What do you feel is the best piece of art you've created so far?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say I think the best piece or pieces are my real self-taught collection. They all have a similar style, but it's like the Wondermundo face, which is what I call the Wondermundo face. And she has like words of like positive affirmation. So like, I love you, or keep going. And that was something that I did last year before I was even doing this full time, because really it was kind of what I mentioned earlier on, like my process of figuring out, like me going through all of my, I call my mental health breakdown in public, but through my art and sharing it, like these are the things that help me, like just those affirmations. And so those are still my favorite, because they're still tools that like when I'm having, I know this like is going to sound so cliche, make some people roll their eyes, but like when I'm having a bad day, like I'll go look at those and just remind myself, like, okay, I can do this, and I don't suck, and I am awesome. So
that's pretty cool. So you mentioned that you've been in the space for a little bit already. So do you ever have like creative blocks where you want to create something and all of a sudden you just can't?
oh yeah, yeah. I think I actually had one. I think I just kind of got through it. Was like over Christmas, like over the holidays. I don't know. I just felt kind of there was a creative block, and but I'm finding though now when I have those blocks, AI is really good for it. When I feel like I'm in a creative like funk, I might just open up an AI tool like Midjourney or Dolly and like prompt something that might get me motivated to do something.
That's pretty cool. What would be your dream project?
My dream project. I think if I could, like, honestly, if I could make like a 2D animation of like Wondermundo or like a game of like Wondermundo's stories, like she goes and does some things somewhere. I don't know. That would be fun.
That's pretty cool. So I keep telling Kevin this, that NFTs are going to catapult cartoons at some point or another. I feel like all those platforms like Netflix, HBO, etc., all those big platforms, they're gonna rely on NFTs to kind of push out cartoons and animation and all these new wave of. Because I feel like we talked on our last podcast that I feel like recently in the last like 10 years, cartoons is not what they used to be anymore. Like I remember when I was a kid, and I'm dating myself here, but waking up on Saturdays and Sundays to, watch cartoons, and it was the cool thing to do. And now in the last like 10, 12 years, that doesn't really exist anymore. And like the weekends, stuff like that. So I feel like NFTs are going to bring that back heavily. What do you feel? Do you feel like that's something that's going to happen, or like, what's your take on that?
100%. I think that's going to happen. And I might be biased because I also work with, I do community marketing with Zero X Thulu, which is a decentralized Web3 production house. And so that's actually what we're doing, or the team is doing, is creating a new anthology series. It might be in animation, and it might be 3D and distributed through NFTs. And so it's like the IP has started completely from Web3, and that's how they plan to do that. And so I am biased for that reason, but I agree, like that is why the co-founder, he quit his day job which he has experience in like Hollywood and production, so he knows that to come into Web3 full time, he really saw that future, especially with like how cartoons like have distribution issues. Sometimes you have it made, but you can't get it out, and so it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because technically, if you own the artwork, you own the rights to that, so you can create whatever you want with it, theoretically, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's going to be huge for cartoons and 3D animation and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Jess, we had posted a comment saying, "What's your favorite collection?" And somebody said it was the Basurita.
Oh, yeah.
I like the colors, so I've got it pulled up over here, and I will share my screen. But maybe you can tell us just a little bit about where that inspiration came from.
Yeah. So Basurita means like in Spanish, it means like little trash. And this came about, it was my first project actually in Midjourney. So the first project I ever used using AI tools. And I think the prompt, and I share the prompt, it was like Wondermundo with like Mexican bright bold colors and trash all over. It just kind of went from there. And so it sold out on Tezos, and then I have it on ETH as well. But yeah, this is mainly me, and it was also me trying to figure out how do I work with AI and still have my style, because a lot of what I do, my work is really bright and bold colors. So even if it's AI or something I'm drawing or painting, it's usually bold and bright. And so that's kind of how I came about this. And then I just generate them, and we went from there. And then they got sold out really quick on Tezos because Robness retweeted it, and he's like the king of trash art, so that was helpful.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So tell us about what your feelings on AI are. I know that you've talked about a few times already trying to use it or integrate it. I mean, what do you say to people who think that AI art is fake, or it's a ripoff?
I mean, I would say like all art is fake and a ripoff because
Ooh, I like
everything
that.
is you're influenced by everything. Did you chop down the tree and make the brush that you've made, right? But when you
Yeah.
think about art in general, it's based upon copying, and influence. So like even if they didn't use AI, there's influence from somewhere. And I also think the way that I also think is it's just a tool, right? And but there's also pride in people who can create pure AI outputs that like didn't that look beautiful or like look cool or resonate with someone without doing additional work to it. And I also think it allows for more people to use art. Like I have a good friend who has muscular dystrophy. She can only move her like finger. She can't move any other parts of her body, but she can type. And so she
Ah,
could actually use that, but before she couldn't
Mm.
really paint and stuff. And so I think if we think about it, it actually is more accessible to people who maybe, and why should we gatekeep painting because you can move your arms? Like maybe now we can allow more people to be creators in ways that we couldn't before. I like to use that argument. Sometimes people really get more mad of that one. But that's
Well,
kind of what opened my mind, I think, a bit more when I heard that. It's like, oh, that makes a lot more sense.
it does make sense. I think you just totally changed my perception of AI art right now, this very moment.
Awesome. Yes.
yeah. That making art more accessible, making NFTs more accessible, I think should always be the goal. And you bring up an awesome point about how this can do that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
I want to also bring up another project of yours, the Esquinas project here.
Oh
And
yeah.
That
I
is
I
pretty
love
cool.
this. Yeah, I saw these and I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, that like I don't know. There's something about it that kind of hit home. I don't know why, but you said earlier that you're used to do collages. You mentioned that on your website as well. So to me, this sort of feels that way. If that's what this is this is
It's
what's the inspiration behind this
AI.
project? The whole thing is AI.
So yeah, but the whole thing is AI.
Yeah,
And I'm one of those people who take pride in getting pure AI output and having people be like, really, that's AI.
yeah.
But
I'm impressed.
I really work
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
create like what I did. I think, and I'm always happy to share prompts. Some people don't like sharing prompts, but it was something around street art, and so I created that. And I wanted to create where familiar liminal spaces, like they look like a street, but you really weren't sure what it was. And so yeah, that's just what I did for these to create these. And again, this is like going from maybe 2000 iterations to like 55. And I think that's the
Wow.
part about AI work that people don't realize or they don't see it as art, but the curation I think is a big part of the art process.
Yeah, these
Yeah,
are
that was
pretty
an
cool.
interesting. Yeah, that idea of sort of prompt gating that you just mentioned, where people don't want to share their prompts, is is that what you think helps make a more successful output? Is really fine tuning what the AI is looking for to get what you're looking for, or how does somebody get better at that?
Yeah, I don't think so. Some people would argue maybe yes, but I think so prompts do help. If you get more specific, it just really depends on what you're trying to do. But I think that like if I could give someone this prompt and they're not going to come out with the same work because I think everybody's
Oh,
perspectives and everything like what they might see is not what I'm seeing. And so it could go a whole different way.
Yeah, that's actually that project Esquina is actually really really cool. I gotta say, like I love it.
Thank you.
all right, let's pull that back there a second. Okay, so tell us about the future of what your career looks like here. You had said to us in our previous conversation that you're going to reevaluate this. How do you know if this is something to keep going with?
Yeah, so for me, like I feel like deep in my heart, I know this is what I'm gonna keep doing. I'm gonna keep
Nice.
creating art. And I think the for me it's like, is my my paintings and all my work enough to sustain me, or will I continue to do like community management work or more with other groups, which is also fun. It's part of Web3, right? But I think in my ideal world in the future, I'd like it to my art to be like the 100% what sustains me. But for now, I think what's really good is that I have the ability to work with like Zero X Zulu, for example, and still do my art to be part of the community here.
That's good. And how do you manage the ebb and flow of the market, right? We talked earlier about how green is good, prices are going up or value is going up. When you see ETH go up, I don't know, what is it, like a bunch of percent in the last 7 days? Does that feel like a raise to you, or like how do you cope with that constant up and down?
No, I kind of use like I'll be honest, like I don't keep a lot of it in ETH, just because I need more stability. And so for me, like there's a way that I manage that, and also I think I try to just I think last year there's a lot of people who were like saying people we knew the bear was coming, so kind of prepared for it and kind of so that we're not chasing the ups and downs of the market. Because I think if you do that, you can. And again, this is everybody. Like I know it's hard for to be out there and do that, but I think you might do some things that you might not do when you're just chasing that market. As far as like there's been shady collectors, there's been shady things,
Yeah.
there's just like weird things going on. Yeah.
Do you have any sad stories about getting burned in the NFT space, whether it's a rug pull or just something terrible that happened that you don't mind sharing?
I'm trying to think. I haven't had like a rug pull, but I did like lose money once, like not a lot, but like a little bit. Trying to like I try to get to DeFi and I try to do like someone was like Fishmatic or this, and it was like right when it crashed.
Oh
And
boy.
so like was not good. I was like, I can't do DeFi anymore until I actually know what the hell I'm doing. Like somebody I was just like, oh, I'll just go do that. And then one time I accidentally sent some ETH from or some Matic from like ETH to Coinbase, and like they didn't get it. So it just was lost forever. It was
Oof.
that too.
Yeah, it's a tough
That's
feeling.
Coinbase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Bitcoin one day reaches like $1 million or ETH is 10 times what it is, I think we'll all look back at those tiny amounts that we lost, even during those crazy gas fees. Back in the 2021, we're like, you spent how much in gas fees? Like that's going to turn out to be a
Jesus,
lot of money one day.
I know. It's like that guy who bought the pizza
Yes.
Yeah.
with Bitcoin.
Yeah. So what's your favorite crypto? You have one?
I would say probably ETH and Tezos. I like that ETH is trying to go into a more neutral, I guess, green friendlier way. We're not there yet. But Tezos has been the most fun for me as far as like where I've grown my base. It feels like the gas fees are low. Obviously, it hasn't done well at all, but it's kind of down now, like way bad. But it's been where I've had the most fun and like feel like I can play without losing a lot. If that makes sense.
That's how I feel about Doge. I know people don't take it seriously, and I'll probably get a lot of lashback right now, but I love Doge. I've been saying this since episode 1. It's my favorite crypto. It's what got me into crypto from the beginning. It makes me laugh. I just love the community, and I'm going to stand by that forever.
Did you get some bonk?
No, I did not. No, I did not.
I
just
actually got some. I was surprised.
You did. Well, you must be ready to retire then. Good for you.
No, but it was a nice surprise.
Yeah. That's great. That's great.
I mean, on the technical side, obviously ETH it's one of my favorites, and obviously Bitcoin will always be my number one. But in all seriousness, Doge got me into crypto. I mean, just listening to the community and being on Twitter and looking at the memes and all that, it's just funny. I was going through a tough time, and going through that community and laughing at all this stuff, it's what really got me into the crypto space. This was back in 10 years ago, maybe. Yeah, 10, 11 years ago now.
You've got someone that disagrees with you here, Hyro, but then you've got Lindsay who says, let's go Doge. So maybe it's
that's right, Lindsay.
Maybe still a split decision on that. That's so funny. Jessica, Jessica, any projects that you are impressed by what they're doing from like a utility or a progress standpoint that really stand out to you? Like, man, they're killing it. They're living up to their expectations.
So Dead Fellas, like I really, really like them. I want to get a Dead Fellas like really bad.
Yeah.
I might do like a Dead Friend, like one of the pets, or just wait and like see if I can do another limited edition and get the funds, the ETH to like get that. But I think they've done such a great job. that he's been a really part of the community and active, and so they're one that's been doing it really good. And then again, I'm biased, so I'm going to say Zero X Dulu. They, the project we've launched a Genesis NFT, but now starting like actual production on the show is really cool. So that's exciting.
That is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the big projects like like for example the penguins, Pudgy Penguins, and Bored Ape, and all those big guys?
I think if you have one and that's your thing, that's totally cool. They're not really my thing. Although, like, I had moments last year where I was like, I remember being like, I'm not going to spend $300 for an ape. And I was like, damn, I should have got it. But I didn't get it then, and I don't regret not getting that because it just didn't really vibe with the community. Like, it just didn't feel like it was my thing. And so, I think there's a community for everyone, and if that's your thing, that's your thing. But I'm not normally a huge fan of those big projects now, especially they just seem very commercial, some of them.
Now they do, yeah, for sure, 100%. I do like the apes because I was listening to a podcast one, Full Send podcast, I believe it was, where the two creators were there and they were talking about their background and their story, and I really liked and connected with what they had to say. And ever since then, like I've liked them, but the other ones do feel very commercialized. Like Pudgy Penguins, it's one of them that I feel like it's just very commercialized now. Like there's no meaning to it anymore.
Yeah,
I feel.
Cool Cats, I think, is another one that's cool. I'm not super in there, but like I met the founder he lives in Austin, and so during South by Southwest I got to meet him last year, and he seemed like a nice person. So that's the only reason like I'm okay with Cool Cats too, because the founder seemed like a nice dude. Like he, had a good story, like you said, and I liked that. So
yeah, you're connected. Yeah.
And Jessica, do you do anything to display the art of the projects that you hold? I know that, as someone who's trying to promote your own art, that's probably going to be your own PFP for quite some time. Is there anything you do in your house or, on your phone to kind of keep the other art that you own in your mind?
Not in my house yet. I have art like that I've collected. They're not NFTs that I've collected because I did collect art before, but I haven't actually figured out a good like display yet for my art. But I have started to create galleries. So like I have one gallery I created like on Cyber that shows all my Simpsons art. Because even before NFTs, I've always collected Simpsons art. I love the Simpsons.
That's cool.
And so
that is cool, yeah.
And so I'll share with you after this. Like I created a gallery because I wanted to show people like look at all this cool Simpsons art that I've collected. And then I did one for I'm like Empress Trash's like biggest holder on Tezos, and so I created a gallery to show all that art. And so I'm starting to. That's been something I've in the last couple of months decided I'm gonna start doing more because I also have collected a lot, and I think that's another source of stuff I can share as well to my community that they'll enjoy.
That is amazing.
That is pretty cool. Yeah.
All right, Jessica, before we wrap this up, what advice would you give to someone who's just getting started in the NFT space that thinks maybe they could do this too? Maybe they could follow in your footsteps.
I would say you can just do it. And the biggest piece of advice is to like filter the noise. Just do you and be yourself. There's going to be a lot of people trying to tell you what to do, how to price, how to do this. And we're all trying to figure that out now. And so just trust yourself and find your friends who you can trust. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Remind us, where can people find you? I've got a couple things up on the screen here, but you tell us.
You can find me at Wondermundo. I'm on Twitter and at wondermundo.io. And on Instagram as well as Alicia and Wondermundo, but it's all linked from, if you go to my website, you can find everything. So thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Definitely an inspiration. I love your focus on giving back and, mental health, taking care of yourself. That's all incredibly useful things, I think, across any sort of industry or ecosystem. So thank you. And we look forward to kind of following your journey along.
Right. Thanks for having me. It's great chatting. Bye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Head over to rebelants.io. Get your own Rebel Ant. And we'll see you again next Sunday. Everyone, have a great night. Miguel, Jessica, have a good night. Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Bye.